Abusia, did you by any chance watch President Mahama in the speech of command with United Nations? No? God Almighty.
At this 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly, I'd like to speak about Africa's role in the future of this organization.
Watching it as a Ghanaian, no, Abusia, super proud.
We cannot normalize cruelty. We cannot normalize hatred. We cannot normalize xenophobia and racism. If we're going to tell a story, let's not tell it slant. Let's tell all the truth.
You see, Mahama a world leader who in Yazo Besuro Biari, but no, the boldness or the kasaye, the eloquence or the kasaye, the facts or drop everything was on point.
If this reality, which is fact-based and straightforward, seems provocative or unsettling, perhaps it's because you are viewing it through the lens of centuries of filters, colonialism and imperialism, and the resulting implicit bias.
When it comes to Ghana, your representation with United Nations are always it's amazing. Nanado time I know all the time we see amazing speeches. But this time, and I'm a tenasipan, I'm okay. My mean near my pennies or moko sometimes no more mokeka. And I was marvelous thing.
We here in this General Assembly have been playing hide and seek with language to find the right words to help us avoid or excuse what we all know is taking place in Gaza.
When it comes to President Mahama, and some of the things I talk about no man cause war Gaza and Koye. Or see if it quacks like a duck, walk like a duck, buff like a duck, then it's definitely going to be a duck.
If it looks like a duck, it swims like a duck, and quacks like a duck, well, then it must be a duck.
So what follow normal Gaza, Kwasobusia, and Yen time Israel for Alhamdulillah.
The crimes in Gaza must stop.
Another thing I about, and they say slave trade here, the Africa, Africa be and the countries are more benefited, from that slave trade, they need to kind of, some reparations, Ghana, near other countries, almost so fire, you babe force you and call for to create wealth.
More than 12.5 million Africans were forcibly taken against their will and transported to create wealth for the powerful Western nations.
They need to kind of pay us or kind of, settle with us because that, it's idea it shouldn't have happened.
We recognize the value of our land and the value of our lives, as did our colonizers, as well as the governments that happily paid reparations to former slave owners as compensation for the loss of their property in quotes.
Bar for the slave trade, normal we artifacts are a kind of Ghana for your normal, for example, and Nigeria for normal. Say some of it was some significant value. Almost back in
we must demand reparations for the enslavement of our people and the colonization of our land that resulted in the theft of our natural resources, as well as the looting of artifacts and other items of cultural heritage that have yet to be returned in total.
I think the last 2 years now, so I'm taking a tomb for I think UK, and then I'm going to return a couple of the artifacts and any gold and for the buy. But that's no the key to be baby fire no. Yeah, we need all of them back.
More than 12.5 million Africans were forcibly taken against their will and transported to create wealth for the powerful Western nations.
And Yakasankwano Kokase or Kasa Nina Ghana, as they say, we are open for business, 24-hour economy. Investors and Marani Yakikan was not just normal talk, but also telling the world they say, oh my Ghana, no, Upezobe invest, he is the boss now. Come and invest.
Additionally, our currency, the Ghana cedi, has appreciated considerably against other currencies, with Bloomberg reporting it as the best performing currency in the world at one point. Our improved sovereign credit rating reflects increasing investor confidence in our economy. And our 24-hour economy initiative promises to transform our economy. And there's a renewed willingness amongst our people to trust that their elected officials have Ghana's interests at heart and that we're progressing together.
Otokuwa about His Excellency Mahmoud Abbas, I think a Palestinian for a penny or leader. And now the war between Israel and decline or visa to the US. So that kind of a leader couldn't attend the United Nations General Assembly.
The denial of visas to President Abbas and the Palestinian delegation sets a bad precedent and should be deeply worrying to all member nations of the United Nations.
And the interesting thing, and they say, Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Abusia, or by your honorable speech, just almost everybody went out of the room.
Order in the hall.
Back to President Mahama's speech, talk about the fact to say, when it comes to representation, our UN Security Council, the whole Africa, 54 nations, 54 countries, you need representations. You need even one representation. So if they want to kind of make decisions as some of it and for Africa, then at least we should have like one representation our UN Security Council. So
the first sentence in Chapter 2, Article 1 of the UN Charter declares that the organization is based on the principle of sovereign equality of all its members. If this were true, and was the case, a continent as large as Africa, with its numerous UN member states, would have at least one permanent seat on the Security Council.
Now, these things are some bold-ass talk. You don't expect to be like Mahama to go to the United Nations and just demand stuff like this. But that's exactly what he did.
We believe that veto power should not be restricted to only 5 nations, nor should it be absolute. There must be a mechanism in this House for the General Assembly to challenge a veto. No single nation should be able to exercise an absolute veto to serve its own interests in a dispute.
President Mahama say the future is African, and then the back, the future, my way, a gangster, yo.
The future of this world is African. Allow me to say this once again a little louder for those of you in the back. The future is African.
And then President Mahama be talk about climate change. I think it's a day or 2 days before. President Trump can say climate change with the same stage. I see climate change and we say who say asan and for so be any so or kasa about 1 hour we say we be kasa like 20-30 minutes. On go kasa over 1 hour. After they do everywhere some yes, that's a deranged talk na no can. Can you only think on what in his speech is paying nothing goes as planned. And then Oba no say in a hoax. President Mahama Babe Jina is a it's real akasa.
Climate change is real.
I don't think that Trump will be fine after that.
Climate change, it's the greatest con job ever.
Climate change is real. And we're fighting a losing battle against the loss of Maldives and other island nations to the rising sea level, against the loss of Timbuktu to desertification and the Amazon forest to global warming and deforestation.
And one crazy thing is the escalator was Trump who stop here. President Mahama Jina so that is how powerful we are. Yeah. We will take our win wherever we get them. Again, or talk about the blockade, they were Cuba. Just so many things, and President Mahama can't want to move.
I'd like to call for the removal of the blockade on Cuba. As Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, our nation's founder, famously said, we seek to be friends with all and enemies to none.
Bakwa Kaya Manije Hopani say, how the world leaders, Ebusia, Omu use social media to kind of serve as baller, like news were in here. But when it comes to they serve them proper news. The
internet, social media platforms, and artificial intelligence offer us the illusion of connectivity, when in fact what they do is reinforce isolation by using algorithms that ensure that we do not receive new ideas and perspectives, but rather more of the same content. We are served alternative facts and manipulated images, making it easy to disseminate disinformation and sow seeds of division amongst communities.
What's the area? Oko TikTok, for example. We share anything there look like, ntoko bi kumbiano for the whole day ntoko nkwana beshe. So, but who be a USA? Sadly, they won't serve it to you as much. Nina are ways world leaders like Western world leaders, omu yusu the control Africa and as omu the serve Ebola. President Mahama talked about that because we have man for right now. Omu own all the social media, YouTube, America for dia. Twitter is owned by Elon Musk, America for dia. Facebook, Instagram, the Threads, WhatsApp, Nina, Mark Zuckerberg dia, America for dia. Now, yes, TikTok, because of China, you know, it's either zombie selling half of TikTok, and I said the whole TikTok need to be American. If not that, they are going to block TikTok or America.
Next, sir, we have an executive order on TikTok. And
guess who Bushayamanato TikTok right now? And Rose and President Trump signing executive order. Basically, TikTok no yatwama US, you know, for. And guess who bought it? Rupert Murdoch, is on the own Fox News. And then Larry Ellison on Oni Oracle saying, I was here serious media people. And I see so whatever news they want to serve Africa, no, that's exactly how they are going to do it. And Chaya, Osha Howard, the various tech CEOs, Apple, Zuckerberg, you know, Mama Kikahon, or Moko Trump, what they were kissing his ass basically. They were doing all that. Send a bear Trump when he beji. And then if there's a catcher that will say, serve this news to Abia Ghana for her. That's exactly what you are going to do. Because if they can force TikTok to be sold, what makes you think that they can't shut you down? So they will oblige. Even though they're in the public face, they will say, so we won't do this. Ebola talk. So President Mahama hitting on that, I was super happy.
The internet, social media platforms, and artificial intelligence offer us the illusion of connectivity, when in fact what they do is reinforce isolation by using algorithms that ensure that we do not receive new ideas and perspectives, but rather more of the same content. We are served alternative facts and manipulated images, making it easy to disseminate disinformation and sow seeds of division amongst communities.
Another one when it comes to refugees, always, you know, like the Western world, you know, or more talk about it, say a problem more. Only when the refugees remove free, like the southern part of, you know, areas, which is Africa, basically.
It is not a mystery that when leaders of Western nations complain of their migration problems, they are often referring to immigrants from the global south.
Because Ukraine in same sea, people were happy. People actually lined up to get, you know, take people from Ukraine. But when Sudan, they are happy, you know, no one wants Sudan for. So then it becomes kind of a, you know, double standard type of thing.
And when we speak of migration, we refer to the 12 million new Sudanese refugees, whom we as a global community should be willing to assist in much the same way that many member nations readily assisted new refugees coming out of Ukraine.
Basically, we say hypocrisy, no?
Let's dispense with the euphemisms and dog whistles and speak frankly.
Or are they one beautiful quote to be at the Philly as a say if there's a so joa? You
have to understand that no one puts their children in a boat unless the water is safer than the land. No one bends their palms under trains beneath carriages. No one spends days and nights in the stomach of a truck feeding on newspaper unless the miles traveled mean something more than just a journey.
And then later, some of the refugees now. When we
speak of migrants, we speak of Mami Ewusi Mensah Frimpong, a judge on the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California. She's the first black female judge on any of California's 4 federal district courts. She was born here in America to immigrant parents from Ghana. We speak of Peter Bosman, a medical doctor in Ghana who moved to the town of Piran in Slovenia in the 1980s and later became the first black mayor of Piran, the first black mayor in Slovenia and in the whole of Eastern Europe. We speak of T. Michael, the iconic Ghanaian Norwegian artist and designer. And of course, we speak of the late Kofi Annan, former United Nations Secretary General.
Chesenya no kwa no kan ye otokwa about the fact say mrofo anase you know other leaders were countries or mobile Africa betu ye gold ne ye natural resources no mobile no mama o ma be negotiate no mama a very small share of the whole cake. Nah, right now if you are coming now, don't just come and dig everything and take it to your, you know, to enrich yourself. But make sure I say the country now Baba saying as at least they get a fair share.
We'll continue to welcome foreign investment, but we must negotiate better for a bigger share of the natural resources that belong to us. And we must insist on value addition to these resources.
Just say beauty near Mahama can ye be each line a idea be here. Last one Okaya manager was talking about girls. Say, Neba 18, talking about Farida, I think. Abuzia Opeso live where we are be mana. Nebana can grow up to be whoever Nebana person.
I want to add that for the sake of Africa, and quite selfishly for the sake of my 18-year-old daughter, I hope that this new world that is arriving is a place of safety and equality for women and girls.
And they talked about Nana Jane Awabe, the first Ghana, a female vice president. And then was even wishing, say United Nations, or General Secretary, at some point, Awabe or Ba.
I'd like to congratulate you on your election to preside over this historic 80th General Assembly and on being the fifth woman to hold this distinction. I'd also like to congratulate Her Excellency Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman on being the first woman vice president of Ghana.
So Mahama's speech in a man with the UN, just say massive talk, massive applause. It doesn't matter baby ujina or president to Mampenin Kasasenya at the world stage, the biggest. Not say koya is up on abaso. But there are some people can't send be. Yebeka who was sending a different video. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia specifically.
In today's world, hundreds of thousands of commercial flights take off and land every day. Libraries have been digitized so that volumes of literature can exist on a small device, small enough to fit inside your pocket. We live in a world of cryptocurrency, artificial intelligence, social media, the internet and its dark hidden dungeon of the dark web, all of which carry a potential threat to global peace and security.
Mami waju Mahama speech Thanks for watching. Tap send. Den numero uno. Mobile app abusia betim dia send this car command dofo e Ghana. So wo Italy, wo Germany, wo Europe, wo USA, wo even Dubai. Na person send this car the brand dofo Ghana. App we so use tap send. Kwa Apple App Store na Google Play Store na kwa download no right now for two phones. Because how they send this car command dofo bia. Yanti we levy. Exchange rate in Wasro is fast, it's secure, it's all the good things and mouth trouble. Almost security a top notch. And I first time I could download the app now use the send this car. Ubo code Magraheb Shema. Depending on baby I want you better see a chuska. I'm at the ska was sending on. Dear Bujas only starting use to tap sender. May conform our neck. If you know more mobile wallet, I was your bet me load do no with ska. It's a time so I will send this kind of command for Ghana. Na nyafe na be connected to bank. Dabi. Or tap wallet no. The fast na is what send ko. Tap send the abusia mean can form enough. This a when you see tap send ya. Ko Apple App Store and Google Play Store na ko download no right now.
Tap send. Papa no.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel for videos like this every day. Till we meet again abusia. Adios.